we can't see each other. All right, with that, I want to introduce Irene Lefton. And Irene is Vice President of Solutions at ABBYY USA. She has been a co-lead for the San Francisco Bay Area Executive Breakfast for a number of years. So Irene, are you there?
I am here.
Terrific. It's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Joe, and welcome everyone. It gives me great pleasure to be able to share some of the information that we gathered at our Bay Area breakfast. Just a little bit about our Bay Area breakfast flow. We do things a little bit differently in our last few Bay Area breakfasts that we've had. The co-leads have put out large post-it notes and put the general topics up on big white flipboard charts up on the wall. And we ask people as they're coming in and mingling to please write down both their best practices and their current challenges and put them up on the board around the topics. And then we're able to cluster similar information to frame out the discussion, which helps it flow a little bit better with the limited time that we have together. We have a pretty good group, although I doubt that we're as consistent in terms of our participants as some of the other cities have mentioned that they are, because we have quite a few people here in the Bay Area, so we tend to get a real mix of people, some that have been to breakfast, some that have not, and we really do enjoy spending the time, and I'm very happy to share with you. So I'm going to be talking about resources. The first slide that you see up here is about reserving resources. There's really three topic areas that I'm going to cover: reserving resources, retaining talent, and using contractors. So on the reserving resources, our discussion in our last breakfast centered around a few areas related to receiving resources. And effectively, we were talking about the risks of uneven utilization, losing control of continuity of staff on projects, and sometimes the customer dissatisfaction that comes out of this, and the additional overhead that comes from bringing on new people. The issues and the challenges that were posed were mostly around reserving resources during long sales cycles and also during delivery cycles when work with the customer is sitting with them for review or acceptance. And I think that actually Ray addressed this a little bit about one idea that he had mentioned. Some of the solutions that we came up with and the people had ideas with, of course, were things we're familiar with: time slicing various tasks to be able to do things, being able to reassign staff to work on other projects such as support or pre-sales during these down times, and that also helps with training. People were sending people to training during some of the down times. And another thing that was mentioned by one of our participants was really to maintain a comprehensive tracking log through their CRM system or their PSA system or spreadsheets to be able to have a better forward-looking view and accurately assess and track status for existing projects so that you have more future visibility towards when those downtimes are going to be. Of course, that's a perfect world, and we don't know completely around how that goes, but that's those were some of the ideas that were shared around that. If we can move on to the next slide, Joe. Thank you. Second area that we spent time on was about retaining talent, because we've all talked about resources as a key asset to us, and it's very important. And we know that there's a high risk of turnover and can be difficulty in recruiting the proper skills mix, whether you're going offshore or onshore, and you don't want to be impacting your customer projects. So the comments and the valuable input that was shared here from the group included developing a culture, keeping sure that your overall group is happy and preventing talent drain. That's a real key situation here. Of course, compensation plays into it, and there were very many different approaches to compensation and bonuses and how they're structured that were discussed across the different people. Some companies are using stock options, some companies are using department level rewards. In terms of mentoring programs, one person shared with us a very interesting program. Now, this is a staff, they probably have about 50 people, if I recall correctly, in their services organization. They include a future leaders program. So as they bring new people into their organization, they are understanding that they have a mix of ages, young people and new people, and they have kind of a career ladder. And this Future Leaders program brings in the more mature people to work and mentor with the younger, newer people so that there's a crossover of skills that are coming out that the new people bring with them, blended with some of the softer skills and experience that the mentors bring with them. And the participants who are in the program as mentees can graduate to become leaders. So this was a lengthy and interesting discussion that we had, especially with technical people, and many of us have a lot of technical people that we're dealing with. Understanding the motivations behind what brings people to work was also discussed at length regarding retaining talent. We found that resources are often motivated to improve their skills more than they're motivated by money or bonuses or rewards. And as a result of that, it goes back to the culture of the organization and making sure that your compensation package is blended with your motivations and offering them either the ability to work on new and interesting technologies or the ability to have their skills used and add value depending on what is particularly motivating them. So that's kind of the discussion around the retaining talent. So the third area that we talked about in the resource realm was about using contractors. And you heard a little bit about this both from Keith and Ray already. But one of the centers of the discussion was about when to use contractors and when to use partner resources, and whether or not the resources were reseller resources, so these may be partners who also tend to sell your technology, or whether they were pure delivery partners. And there is some challenges around this. Of course, there's the risk of mixed quality if you don't have good training, and we talked about training a little bit. I think Keith talked a little bit about training and how the budgets for that seem to be drying up. We're experiencing that as well, but we do recognize that it's really important to have good training. You need to have a win-win in terms of the utilization when you're working with a partner, because you want to ensure that they're getting enough business from you that they're going to maintain well-trained staff. And you need to look at whether or not there's a cultural mismatch, because if they are of a different delivery approach or different culture than you have or than your clients have, then you're going to drive yourself into a customer dissatisfaction situation. So how do we handle this? Well, using partners in remote locations. That's something that Ray talked about extensively, and we found the same thing here. We found that especially even within the U.S., having people or partners or contractor resources set up in different geographic locations than where your headquarters office is will facilitate better usage of those resources, and it can also help you with your travel issues that we all sometimes have when we send people on the road as road warriors. Using blended teams where you've got some of your own core company team blended with your contractor team is another area that was discussed. One person talked about the partners that they use and how they are actually creating specific services packages that their partners can sell when they sell a software license. So they have certain partners that are certified around delivering these particular packages, and that helps them control and limit that. Everybody agreed that it was important to provide partner training and partner enablement tools if you are going to be working with partners or contractors as resources, and also making sure that you do select the right partner for a cultural fit, because you don't want to put a partner out there who's going to effectively, quote unquote, throw you and your software under the bus. You want to make sure that they support your software, that if there are issues that happen, and I'm sure no one on this call has ever had issues on a project with a partner or even with your own technology, but you want to make sure that it's handled properly. And with small and medium-sized companies, especially if that's who you're working with as a contractor or partner, we talked a lot about the need to hold them accountable and to certify them. So, and of course, this is different whether they're a selling partner or a delivery partner. Next slide, please, Joe.
Good points.
So just to sum up from the Bay Area, at the conclusion of our breakfast, we kind of felt like how you use your resources is going to be the difference between what points you to success or what points you to failure. And I've talked just a little bit about reserving resources, retaining talent, and using contractors. But actually, what we concluded at the end of our discussion was that managing the resources is really one of the most critical components to everyone's success, because if your customers are impacted, your business is impacted, and you really want to manage your utilization, keep your customers happy, limit your overhead, ensure low turnover, reduce the overhead you have with recruiting and training, and most importantly, keep your customers happy.
Hey, thanks, Irene. Excellent. I want to reference a couple of your points, partners, and yeah, you're right. I've never had a problem with partners, and I've never had a problem with the software. Kidding, of course. What I found works the best is that if you have a partner, if they're a selling partner, then they have skin in the game. In other words, they're not just there to sell services of their own. They're there to make sure the software works. So I've worked with partners that are just implementation partners versus selling partners, and the selling partners are the best, but they also require the most amount of investment. It can take as long as a year to get a selling partner up to speed. But in my experience, then that selling partner is as motivated as you are. And in one company I was at, they actually were outdoing us quarter to quarter. The other comment I wanted to make, Irene, is regarding tracking resources. At all the breakfasts that we had this year, this came up, and we asked people, what tools do you use? Because folks have a lot of difficulty tracking the resources. And still, the number one tracking tool is Excel, which is really surprising to me, given that so many people have a PSA solution or some kind of resource management solution. It still doesn't seem to be embedded in their cultures yet.
That's true. We did talk about that a little bit, Joe.
Great. Well, thanks, Irene. Great summary. So let me move on then.